This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Coveil. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Before I jump into my guest today, I have a request. I've made this request before, not often, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you want to help me to land great new guests, write a review. Go to iTunes, Apple's iTunes. The shortcut, my last name /iTunes, covel.com/iTunes will forward you right into my iTunes page. Log in, write a review. For your time and toil, I will send you a free trend following CD of extras. Just drop me an email. My first name @mylastname.com, michael@covel.com. It absolutely helps in this crazy review world that we all live in, which is an absolute pain in the ass, in my humble opinion. But if you like the podcast, go write a review. covel.com/iTunes. My guest today is Dave Huss. You probably don't know Dave. Dave is a young guy. He did a little work for me last year, and we stopped communicating. Then he came back to me and he said, "Hey, Michael, I think your audience might enjoy my story." Now, you might think that's self-promotion, but I don't really see how Dave has anything to sell here. This is more an intellectual share that he brought to my attention. Before I explain Dave, let me take one step backwards. I still remember the first time that I met Salem Abraham in Canadian Texas. He talked about his background. Being in a rural area, his hometown, he wanted to start a business that he could do from distance. We're talking the late 80s, early 90s, so before the internet. And before he went down the path of becoming a trend-following trader, Salem Abraham was investigating the t-shirt business, the t-shirt mail order business. I'm not sure Salem would have made the same amount of money if he went down that direction, but I'm sure he would have done quite all right. Back to my guest today, Dave Huss. Dave Huss is in the t-shirt business. Here's the twist. The t-shirt business with a trend-following approach. I'm not going to give too much away, but I think you will find this a really interesting conversation. Trend following exists in all walks of life. I beat this drum constantly. You see it in venture capital. You see it in film financing. You see it in trading and the exact trend following methods that make up my world. My guest today, Dave Huss, is applying it to the t-shirt business, and he's making pretty good money. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dave Huss. Here you are, a young guy, late 20s. We ended up working on a project together. We really couldn't get it to mesh well, but I really liked the way that you thought, and I liked the way that you were kind of going about problems. And now you're going to explain why over the course of this podcast. But you really weren't an entrepreneur at that moment in time. You were more of a contractor. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. The vast majority of people in this world are. But now that you've made the transition, and here you are, a guy that has figured out a way, and we're going to talk about that way that you figured out a way to profit, and you're selling to clients, which is a whole different ball game. And you're selling a product to clients, which is a whole different ball game than trying to give service contractor type gigs, shall I say, to the end user. Why don't you talk about that transition and just the notion of going from contractor to entrepreneur? And I don't know if maybe you thought you were an entrepreneur when you were a contractor.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I think there may have been some lack of understanding on my part what exactly it means to be an entrepreneur. And I think part of that is a learning process for sure. The reference that you gave, I used to do consulting for people doing paid advertising on Facebook, AdWords, and other channels. To be honest, I didn't really have a business per se, although I thought I did, because I couldn't really hire other people to do what I was doing. I didn't have a system in place. And so I think that kind of led to, the client work was okay, but it was kind of like a treadmill, right? Like get a client, lose a client. It was at the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready for a change now. I want to apply my skill set basically for myself, for building my own business. And that's where the t-shirts came in.
Well, let's talk about that. And let me give a little intro on that. So one of the most famous traders in my world is a guy named Salem Abraham. And he's in a remote location of Texas. He's been there his whole life, built his family there and everything. He's a hedge fund manager. He's actually profiled in my book, The Complete Turtle Trader. What many people might not know is that before Salem went down the path of becoming this very successful hedge fund manager, trading trend following methods, he was looking for a business that he could run from a very remote location in Texas. And the business that he was analyzing at that moment in time, and we're probably talking late 1980s, was the t-shirt business. So you're my first guy on this podcast to talk about the t-shirt business. A trend following t-shirt business nonetheless, yeah?
It's interesting that you say that. The t-shirt industry has changed a lot in that amount of time, and also it hasn't changed a lot in that amount of time. So what has changed is, now a lot of the sales are done online, right? So my t-shirt business is delivering the best designs to a really passionate group of buyers at the right time. I do Facebook advertising to find people with certain interests, let's say like scuba diving or, CrossFit, and then making shirts that they absolutely love. That's the essence of the t-shirt business, is making products that people love and they want to wear. It's just now it's more customized to the individual.
Dave, talk about this website, Teespring. For what I understand, if Teespring did not exist, your business would not exist today. Kind of like if the internet didn't exist, my business wouldn't exist. And I'm not being flippant, but it's true. If there was no internet, my business, I'd probably be doing something else for sure. Talk about Teespring. Explain what Teespring is. Talk about the venture capital that has gone into Teespring as well.
What I mentioned earlier is basically the principles of t-shirts haven't changed. But what has changed is, how you deliver those shirts. So if I had started this business, like the gentleman that you mentioned in the 80s, I would have had to invest in a, printing press or make a partnership with someone who had a large scale facility to be able to print these shirts and fulfill all the orders. But now there's websites like Teespring, which will handle all of the back end stuff, taking the payments, printing the shirts, shipping them to customers. And all I have to do is send them the design and give them the customers to buy the shirts. They handle everything else.
How much money has Teespring raised so far? I mean, sometimes this venture capital jargon can be a little silly, and I'm not trying to be silly, but I think you said the number to me was around 56 million in venture capital has gone into this particular firm that prints t-shirts and mails them out to people.
On demand, right? So that's the key. It's not just a regular, t-shirt company. Like, they print on demand. So if I make a campaign that doesn't sell, it doesn't cost me anything. And like that is a huge advantage for when you're just getting started. I don't have to make, beyond just the spend on advertising, any investment in a physical plant or anything. So that's why I've been able to grow so quickly.
Well, I guess you do have some time, energy, some design work that you might do that does cost you a little something.
Sure, but that's nothing compared to buying my own t-shirt printing press.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me lay this out. So from a trading perspective, many good traders will look out there and say, okay, here's the selection of markets that I can choose from. And from a trend following perspective, you look at a diversified portfolio, the year starts, And I use this classic example from about a year and a half ago that when 2014 started, nobody knew that crude oil was going to crater 50% down. But if you had a system that allowed you to be in a position to participate when crude oil started to crater, you could make all that money on a short trade. Likewise, you have stumbled into, I don't know if that's the right word, or you have deliberately planned, or there's been a little good luck or some coincidences, but you have kind of come at t-shirt production, t-shirt design, t-shirt sales in the exact same manner as I just described for a trend following trader.
There are lots of people who want to do Teespring and have tried to do Teespring, but most of them don't stick around because they don't have a system in place, right? It's very similar to trading. You know, you have to stay in the game long enough to hit a few home runs. And most people, whether that's in t-shirts or trading, they don't make it, right?
Dave, break that down. Let's just, okay, you're people know now, okay, you've got a business, you're in the t-shirt biz, you have designs. The vast majority of your designs are going to be losers. 1 out of 10 might be a big winner. Mm-hmm. Discuss that process, how you go about it from the ground up. Talk about some of the numbers, some of the metrics, what turns out to be a winner, how many are losers, etc.
So in my experience doing this for over a year now, basically 1 out of 10 of the shirts that I design, do the advertising for, and put online will be moderately or a big winner, right? So worth my time. 2 out of 10 shirts might be, break even or a small winner. And then 7 out of 10 will just be duds, like they'll lose money. So it's very important that I have a system, and my system is, I spend $20 on each shirt in paid Facebook advertising to try and get customers. If after that $20 I don't have any sales, that's it. The shirt's dead. No emotions, no nothing. And that has worked pretty well. If the shirt gets sales, then I'll put more money into the advertising and scale up that position.
So if you're launching 10 to 20 new shirts per week, those are kind of like a trader that's taking his trades. You have to keep launching the shirts because you don't know which one's going to be a winner and which one's going to be a loser. You have no crystal ball in your hands that says, my name's Dave, I can predict the next one.
The more that I try to force it and predict what's going to happen, usually the worse that it does. One of the markets that I focus a lot of my attention on is hobbies, mainly for older women, like, sewing, knitting, basically anything your auntie or your grandma likes to do.
You're in your late 20s, right? Okay, so we're talking older women. Give me what, over 65?
40 plus.
Okay, this is not anything that's talking about any kind of personal preference you have. This just happens to be this is just the model you've figured out.
Yes. So this works for me. There's other t-shirt sellers who do sports, some that do pets. For me, it's grandma hobbies, basically. That's worked well for me. And because I'm not in that market, I can't accurately make predictions of what will work. I just have the fans come up with ideas or source them from, Pinterest or other websites. And I just test them, 10 to 20 ideas a week. If it makes money, then scale it. If it doesn't, then kill it. That's really the essence.
Talk about how you came about this particular niche. I know you don't want to give away too much of your secret sauce. We talked about that, but it's kind of interesting. Here you are, a guy in your late 20s, and you discover that this particular grandma sect, cult, maybe even if I'm saying nicely, on Facebook can be supplied with t-shirts that they love, that they want to share with their family, their kids, etc., all that stuff. And you've figured out a niche where on some months in a business that's about a year or so old, you've done over $10,000 in profit, haven't you?
Yeah, that has happened. So I'd say on average this year, high 4 figures, maybe a few low 5-figure months. But that's already after I have all these systems in place, right? So I'm launching 10 to 20 shirts a week, spending a lot on advertising, having 2 full-time employees that help me as well. It was really a matter of drilling down on, I've tried lots of different hobbies. I mentioned scuba diving earlier, CrossFit, and anything that people are really passionate about, those are good t-shirt markets. For me, the grandma hobbies just resonated the most with my designs.
What this means, though, this is for grandma hobbyists that are on Facebook. And I don't have too many grandma hobbyist friends, but if we can all imagine what grandmas are into, pictures of their grandkids, whatever they're doing now, and a real social kind of viral connection between them, probably differently than us people that are a little bit younger. They probably really love this connecting thing. So, and this is all about you developing an ad and a t-shirt design and letting that particular demographic, and that's how you're able to narrow it down. You're paying Facebook for that particular demographic to see your particular design. And that's how you're able to make these judgments quickly, cut your losses quickly, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I let the market, this t-shirt market, decide what designs are profitable and worth pursuing. I try to be involved as little as I can in that process because I'm not in that audience. I can't make those judgments.
Yeah, Dave, I mean, I definitely,
well, obviously,
I'm no more in that audience than you are. That's for sure. But I definitely don't think you're in that audience. I'll see another connection here to trading. So many people get fixated on, I must trade Apple stock. I must trade this. I must trade that. And you know what? You could wake up tomorrow and make a freaking fortune trading orange juice. Why do you care where the money comes from? As long as you're a relatively honest person, you're doing the right thing, you've got a business, who cares what the market is?
I think that's a really great point, and probably one of the reasons that people drop out of t-shirts is that they pick a market that they like. Unfortunately, it's a market that doesn't support sharing of the shirts and paying for advertising, so it doesn't work, and then they give up. But they would have rather tried many different markets to see what works for them.
So the number one metric for trend following is price. If the price is going your way, which really speaks to making money, if the price is going your way, either up or down, I guess there's not really a short business in the t-shirt business, but there's a long business here, a long only business. But price is the number one metric in trend following. You're saying yours is profit. Explain.
For anyone who's tried Facebook advertising, there's lots of different things you could look at. You can look at your cost per clicks, your cost per this, your cost per that. But for me, what I really care about, and the number one metric, is profit. Am I getting more money out of this t-shirt design that I'm putting in? And that's always the first and last thing I look at to base my decisions to spend more or spend less on that shirt.
Dave, talk about the difference in terms of sales, and I'm just talking units. So give me how many total t-shirt designs do you think you've put up and tested?
Oh, wow. This year it's in the hundreds, maybe even 500 different designs. I mean, I honestly don't know. It's in the several of hundreds for sure.
If we're talking units sold, and you can be rough with this, units sold, the lowest number of units sold for a t-shirt design and the most number of units sold for a t-shirt design. I'm not really cared about price here. I'm just curious in total units so the audience has some perspective as to what a bomb is and what a hit is.
A bomb would be I sell nothing, and that probably happens 6 out of 10 times. I'll just sell nothing.
6 out of 10 times you're selling zero.
Zero, yeah. So I lose money on all 6 of those designs. I'd say maybe 2 out of 10 will, break even, sell 30 units, maybe 50, and make a little bit of profit. And then 1 out of 10 will sell over 100 units. Even rare, there's a few that have sold over 1,000 units for one design. So that would be more like 1 out of 20.
What do you think? And I think this becomes the kind of debate that I have in my world, the fundamental debate versus the I don't know debate and I really don't care debate. But you really don't know why that particular t-shirt. I mean, in hindsight, you can probably theorize why that particular t-shirt design sold over 1,000 units. You really don't know, do you?
No, I really don't. And the funny thing is, the designs that I think are really good and I'm kind of rooting for in the back of my head, oftentimes they just flop. One of those 1,000 unit plus designs, I almost didn't even launch it because I didn't think it would work. it was based on like an older design that I had launched before that sold maybe, 30 units something. And I took the same concept, made a new design, and put it on a mug, and it sold over 1,000 units. So if I had let my intuition say, oh, that didn't work before, you shouldn't do it, I would have missed out on one of my best-selling designs.
Well, we call it in the trading world, we call it back testing. And you kind of go back in time with historical data and you try and really theorize what's going to happen in the future, make sure that this particular system worked in the past. I don't know if you could exactly do that in your world yet. You might not have enough data, but you are testing constantly.
Definitely. There are softwares that can research what designs are popular. So I can kind of see what the trends are as far as messaging and, different target audiences. So there's definitely a similarity there to trading as well.
Another thing I think is interesting is the pyramiding concept, or as you say, scaling. So in trading, if you get a winner, there's some argument sometimes about should you put all of your position on in a signal or not. Some people have that debate. But generally, I've seen a pyramiding concept works pretty well in trading. And of course, in your world, you can't just put the whole position on. You can't just scale up at the first one. You've got to see some progress. You've got to see the buys. You've got to see the sales. Talk about the notion of scaling up and how you understood or how you started to understand how important scaling could be. And is there a limit in your particular market right now with scaling?
Yeah. So the way that I approach kind of I guess you would call it position sizing for these different shirt designs, I have certain levels, let's say it hits a certain amount of sales that I will start to increase the budget over time. By increase the budget, that means spend more on the advertising to those, audiences, and then trying to find new audiences to target as well, maybe a more broader targeting. There is a certain point where, if there's a design that sells over 1,000, there's a certain point where you kind of reach most of the target audience, and then it will kind of die. So there is like a ceiling for sure on the audience, but it's quite rare that you actually show it to everyone and then it's not profitable anymore.
What I think is also interesting here, Dave, is that you've picked a particular business model where most likely you're not going to make the same amount of money as Zuckerberg with this particular model. You're not going to make whatever Zuckerberg's currently worth with this model. But and we've talked about this, that you've got a chance to make a lot of money with this particular alternative system. Talk about the notion where so many people get caught up in the headlines, in the big picture macro, and they're just not on the ground, literally and figuratively, with their mind in a creative way, looking for markets. So many people are just fascinated with these big picture things. And here you are talking about an idea where I'm sure everybody, sits back and says, hey, that's good money. That's nice. But how many people would really go that direction? People go to school and they say, oh, I've got to go get a job working for the man or working for this Fortune 500 company, or I'm going to start my, perfectly conceived startup company that's going to, be the 500th different version of Airbnb. And I'm going to raise all this venture capital from such and such and such and all this other crap. Whereas you're just kind of on the ground and saying, you know what, let's keep experimenting. Let's see what's happening here, and making a lot of money with it.
I pretty much agree with what you said there. I think a lot of people, you see all these startups in the news, like, oh, Uber did this and Airbnb did that and Facebook did that, which is cool. And that's awesome if people want to start those kind of companies. But I think there's definitely a survivorship bias there. Like you don't hear about the 10 other social networks that died a very quick, painful death. People would rather dream of starting the next Facebook than actually starting a profitable company that's worthwhile and helps people in a different way, and that could fund their lifestyle. At least in my experience, because it's easy to dream about that, but then you actually have to do something and take action and get in the market and get some scrapes and bruises and do it. It's definitely worth it. Most people will think you're crazy on the way, and you probably are a little bit crazy, but you can definitely make it work.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate the compliment.
For sure. It's totally worth it, whether you do t-shirts or some other business. Don't trust the system and make it yourself.
Let's talk about online marketing a little bit to the audience. You've got a lot of perspectives, different experiences, but online marketing is becoming more and more niche. And you can't just sit on your hands with a, shall I say, a business card website that you're 15 years late to the game. You're running some business. You're all excited. You paid someone $5,000 to build you a website, and now it just sits there. And there's all different types of ways to make a website come alive. My current version right now is a podcast. But there's got to be some life there. There's got to be some energy there. And I talk about the notion of online marketing and reaching people, the customization of online marketing, niche markets, the right person at the right time. There's a lot of different issues in play here.
Over the past, X number of years, online marketing has become more and more of an influence on our lives and the products that we buy, to the point where you have to get involved in online marketing in almost any kind of business. When I tell people that one of the best channels for my t-shirt sales is actually mobile phones, like people pulling out their credit card. So imagine this, a grandma pulling out her credit card and putting it into her phone, right? Most people would say, oh, they would never do that. But, that's the world that we live in right now. People are online, and with marketing, if you can reach, your target market, whether that's on Facebook or Google, find your most passionate fans of your business and hit them with the right products that they really want, listen to them, and then find them with the right timing, follow up with them. That is what will, lead to success in online marketing. It can't be ignored. You can't put your head in the sand for the internet anymore.
Dave, where can people find you, or do you want people to find you? Do you want to, I would highly recommend laying low. We didn't give many details away today about the niche that you have figured out. It's, to me, it kind of cracked me up when you told me the exact details. And of course, there's, people might say, well, if you want to make this comparison to trading markets, these big liquid markets everybody can see, okay, that's one thing. But in the current situation in your world right now, the last thing you want to do is really tell people the exact market that is so profitable, this particular subset of grannies that love to share on Facebook. It's fascinating. Do you want people to reach out to you? Do you want people to find you, or do you just want to keep making money being low key?
So my website is growthscout.com, growthscout.com, and there's a contact form. You can contact me if you want, but of course I won't give out, my exact t-shirt website or anything like that.
Are you starting to imagine, now that you see this system, you see this kind of trend following type system, which is the same kind of system venture capital firms use, and film financing, the MIT blackjack team. It's this all kind of like ride a big winner. Are you looking at other types of markets besides t-shirts in the consumer business, or are you right now just staying focused on t-shirts?
For the rest of this year, I'm definitely focused on t-shirts for the holidays. Next year, though, I think there's a lot of opportunities to sell, other physical products, whether that's on Amazon or my own e-commerce store. Now that I've built up this audience, I'm sure there's many other products that they would like as well.
Take care. Interesting stuff. I'm sure my audience will find the parallel fun and insightful. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.